Today, we will continue our teaching, the 43rd episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. What will we cover today? In the previous two sessions, we taught the practice methods of the Hinayana and the exoteric Buddhist teachings. Now, we will begin teaching the practice methods of the esoteric Buddhism. The esoteric Buddhism is currently very popular out there. However, their practice usually involves establishing connections through empowerments. Whenever they hear about a Rinpoche arriving in Hong Kong, everyone rushes to receive empowerments. Most of these Rinpoche do not offer much Dharma teaching. They simply offer empowerments. Of course, some of the better ones also offer Dharma teachings. But the problem is that they focus on the empowerments, rather than on the Dharma and mind cultivation. In this way, achieving Buddhahood through the current body in the present lifetime is essentially impossible. Why is it impossible to achieve Buddhahood through the current body and the present lifetime simply by receiving empowerments? Because it requires the integration and coordination of many factors. It requires both an explanation of Buddhist theories and a balanced approach to practice the Dharma, not focusing only on a single point. In other words, a balanced Dharma practice approach is essential. In this session, we will explain what balance really means. We will gradually explain it from the basics to a more advanced level. It is impossible to cover everything in one session. So, we will cover it over several sessions. In esoteric Buddhism, what auxiliary forces are required if we want to achieve Buddhahood through the current body in the present lifetime? Let's not talk about main forces or the specific methods to practice. Only the auxiliary forces alone. There are many details you need to know. If you practice the Dharma randomly, accepting a few empowerments casually and then practicing some rituals, you will find that in the end you will not be able to achieve anything. The reason is that you are missing a core, such as cultivating your mind. Many of the theoretical foundations of Buddhism are missing. You are not paying attention to the balance of auxiliary forces and the auxiliary forces needed for your main practice. In this session, we will discuss what you should focus on. Today's is, what are the esoteric Buddhism's auxiliary forces for attaining Buddhahood through the current body in the present lifetime? Okay, let's first give a brief review of what we have discussed previously. We have talked about the underlying causes of greed, hatred, and ignorance. It could be that when someone scolds you, you become easily emotionally agitated. This could be because you are overly sensitive, impossible, or unable to balance your emotions, and therefore easily become agitated. The second reason may be that your heart is filled with uncontrollable anger, and you do not know how to deal with it. Therefore, Buddha Shakyamuni once said that greed, hatred, and ignorance are actually habits accumulated by sentient beings over countless lifetimes. It is also considered a source. If our behavioral formula continues to be wrong and uncorrected, it will only intensify. This is the primary factor that causes us to fall into the three lower realms and continue in the cycle of reincarnation. Anger is actually a manifestation of hatred. If we do not look for the source of this hatred, have we not used many episodes to teach you how to find the source? But you say, don't bother. I might as well recite a few more mantras, practice a few more Dharma sessions, and receive a few more empowerments, and that's enough. In fact, this is not possible. Because in our Dharma practice, you only have a shell, without an inner core. In the end, the karma of nature is not based on how many empowerments you have received, nor on whether the appearance you visualize is identical to the deity, nor on how many times you have practiced the Dharma. Or perhaps your visualization is powerful. It is not based on these that causes you to rebirth. So, what is it based on? Your mind. Is your mind good or bad? Whether your mind is connected to a virtuous magnetic field is determined by this. Are there any malicious magnetic fields pulling you? Have you repented and cleared them? It is based on these pulling you to decide whether you must reincarnate. Therefore, no matter how great a guru you find is, and if he only knows how to confer you with empowerments, but does not teach you the Dharma and how to change your behavioral formulas, it will be useless. That is why I want to teach you how to find the source of your hatred, so that you can learn to change your behavioral formulas and get rid of the thing that is pulling you to continue reincarnation. That is, the thing that prevents you from becoming a Buddha in this life and forces you to continue reincarnation. This is the only way to get rid of it. What will happen if we cannot break free? We will definitely fall into the 3 lower realms. Buddha Shakyamuni has already explained this clearly. There is no ambiguity at all. Psychologists say that anger is the most primitive of the human emotional system. Yet, in human culture, we are not taught how to handle anger. We are simply told to suppress it. In other words, do not get angry in front of others. Control your emotions. But how do you handle it? In fact, this is not taught in schools. Unless you seek specialized guidance from experts or psychologists, you cannot learn this. But in Dharma practice, you can look to Buddha Shakyamuni. The core of his teachings is how to handle your emotions, your greed, hatred, and ignorance. If you can handle your greed, hatred, and ignorance, you can handle your emotions. In other words, if our Dharma practice method does not apply that awareness, you must have the ability to apply your own awareness. Buddha Shakyamuni has already taught you that if you do not know when you are angry, or if you have done something wrong, then you lack that awareness, and it will still be useless. That is, we must learn to develop that awareness, and also learn to use it to correct behavior. If you simply rely on chanting mantras, entering the samadhi, or reciting the Buddha's holy names, there will be a huge difference. Because that is only a shell. Without a core, you cannot modify your behavioral formulas, and will still need to reincarnate continuously. This is an inevitable result. Well, if I were to reincarnate and seek rebirth in a Buddha's pure land, but I do not correct my behavior, or have corrected and done a few good deeds, would I be able to go there? Actually, no. The Amitabha Sutra clearly states that you must meet certain conditions. Those are all prerequisites for cultivating the mind. In other words, you must learn to cultivate your mind. Remember, the Dharma practice is not only about chanting mantras, entering samadhi, and reciting the Buddha's holy names. It should be combined with cultivating the mind. What causes our uncontrollable anger? Let's talk about this. Firstly, it is because some of your demands, wishes, or needs are not being met. American psychologist Maslow has a very famous theory called the hierarchy of needs. First, we all have physiological needs, safety needs, social needs of love and belonging needs, respect needs, and self-actualization needs. Does Buddhism help us successfully address these 5 basic needs? If we cannot solve these problems, then we will not be able to achieve anything no matter what we practice. In Buddhism, are there any practice methods that can deal with these needs? We have already talked about the first and second in the previous 1 or 2 sessions. When we talk about the need for safety, the need for personal security, and the need for a stable life, what do Buddhist groups and many other religious groups rely on? It is the community, an organized group. In Buddhism, we call this the Sangha. There are different methods of practice, the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Regardless of the method you use to cultivate, the Sangha system ensures personal safety and a stable life. No longer needing to worry about food, clothing, shelter, or transportation, you can focus on your Dharma practice. This is the function of the Sangha. But when it comes to the need to be free from pain, threats, or illness, each has its own method. There are different teachings, whether it is Hinayana, Mahayana, or Vajrayana. The Hinayana, because it advocates eliminating afflictions and attaining body, primarily uses the method of escape. Its perceptions, Dharma practice, actions and results all move in this direction. Therefore, in an effort to escape these sufferings, even its visualization practices incorporate these elements. Its 4 foundations of mindfulness are actually a form of visualization. Compared to current exoteric Buddhism, it is much better. At least it involves visualization. The first foundation of mindfulness is visualizing the body as impure, the second is visualizing feelings as suffering, the third is visualizing the mind as being impermanent, and the fourth is visualizing dharmas without self, which can be divided into the northern and southern traditions. These teachings all describe and teach practical methods to help eliminate suffering, threats, and illness. However, they view suffering as inevitable and often focus their attention on suffering during practice. As a result, many people easily become attached to suffering, which leads to problems. For details, please refer to episode 41 of our Compassion series. How can we determine whether a religion or sect has the ability to help sentient beings escape from suffering forever and obtain eternal happiness? In fact, all Dharma practice methods are divided into two levels. One is called the theoretical foundation, and the other is called visualization, which refers to the method you use during actual practice, such as visualization. If your actual practice method lacks visualization, and you simply chant mantras and sit meditate, there will be a huge difference. Why? Because everything is created by the mind. Whatever you do must be connected to the awareness and related to escaping samsara for it to be effective. Why? Because we are currently in the three realms. What governs the three realms? The law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is that if you do not sow the seeds of a cause, you will not reap the fruits of that cause. All causes and effects are interconnected. This means that your Dharma practice should not only be theoretical. Even theoretical methods must correspond to your goals. If you have theory but no actual practice, it will be useless. Your actual practice must also be connected. Okay, let's take a look. There are 84,000 methods of Buddhist practice. Many people say, actually, they all lead to the same destination. It does not matter which method you practice. This is wrong. We are currently operating under the law of cause and effect. If your cause deviates even slightly, your result will be different. You have no power to change this law of cause and effect. You simply cannot. Well, we must be very careful with the methods we are practicing, because the results obtained by each method and the number of twists and turns encountered in the process are all different. In other words, if you choose the wrong method, it will be very difficult. You will not be able to attain Buddhahood through the current body, you will be unable even to reach a Buddha's pure land, and you will not be able to avoid falling into the three lower realms. That is, you must choose your practice method very carefully. Their effectiveness varies, and the difference is enormous. If you say that there is not much difference between them, you will be lying, absolutely lying. This violates the law of cause and effect. Now that we have discussed the Hinayana, let's look at the exoteric Buddhism. We have already covered all of it, in fact. Buddhism is divided into 10 schools, and the Hinayana accounts for 2 of them. The Mahayana school had the 3 contemplations of one mind of the Tianti school, but this has been lost. The 3 treatises school had the correct contemplation of no attainment, but this has been lost. The Vinaya school had no visualizations, nor any similar methods. The Pure Land school had the 16 contemplations of Amitabha, but this has been lost. The Dharma character school had the 5-fold Vijnanavada of visualization, but this has been lost. The Zen Buddhism's visualization on the inherent nature, original face, has been lost. The Huayang, Avatar, Soka school's visualization of the Dharma realm has been lost. The esoteric Buddhism has not lost anything. Why is the esoteric Buddhism so strange that it has not lost anything? Because, I can tell you, in terms of the region and the method of its propagation at the time, the esoteric Buddhism was completely different from the exoteric Buddhism. These are 2 completely different systems. Therefore, it was not implicated and did not cause any problem. Furthermore, there are countless visualization practices, including emptiness, the awareness, primary directions, different levels of practice, and approaches to meet the 5 needs. Because there are many, many methods, and many of them can balance each other. Of course, you have to understand the emptiness to achieve balance. So, it could be preserved. In terms of actual practice, I can tell you that the visualization component of the exoteric teachings is close to none. It only has theories and some simple methods of reciting sutras, chanting the Buddha's holy names, and meditation. The reason all visualization practices have been lost is because they favor simplicity, So simple that even illiterate people could achieve enlightenment simply by chanting the Buddha's holy names. This approach, in fact, makes it easier to spread knowledge, similar to what other religions claim: believe in the Lord and you'll be saved. If you believe in them, you will be saved. However, some non-Buddhists possess psychic powers, have entered the spirit world and returned, and some are even scientists. They can actually enter the spirit world, and they have written many books saying that this is impossible. Needless to say, they should be rejected, right? Leaving other religions alone, let's talk about Buddhism. If you make it sound so simple that everyone believes it, then the methods that can truly help you will be drowned out. They will not want to put in the effort, and because of this, they all think that chanting the Buddha's holy names is the best, thus eliminating the most essential and effective practice methods and theories. This is how they were lost. This can be said to be the fatal flaw of Mahayana exoteric Buddhism, which is due to the excessive exaggeration of the efficacy of chanting the Buddha's holy names. Since many Mahayana Buddhist sutras appeared hundreds of years after the Buddha's nirvana, the authenticity of these sutras and whether they were altered are questionable. Even if a sutra is generally recognized as authentic, is there a possibility that a part, or a single sentence has been altered? In fact, all need to be verified by a master with actual practice experiences, and according to Buddhist principles. Whether it is theoretical or practical, it must be verified before it can be confirmed. This is something you should be careful about. Therefore, we should not brag or over-exaggerate anything. Otherwise, it will be disastrous. You will lose your rationality, unable to analyze, and thus cause great harm, pushing Buddhism into the Dharma-ending age. In fact, we have already entered this period. Has the esoteric Buddhism entered this period? It still retains many actual visualization practices. But the problem is that now most of the Buddhism propagation is maintained by empowerments. It is hard to say that it has not entered the Dharma-ending age. Nowadays, very few people truly focus on the actual practice of visualization and the theories. Now let's talk about the process of the Mahayana Dharma practice. You can refer to a video entitled The Classification of Dharma Practice, The Essence of Emptiness, available from our Dudjom Buddhist Association, International's TV channel on YouTube for a detailed explanation. From the initial stage of the level without doubts of the 10 beliefs to the final stage of the 4 preliminary practices, the path of preparation, we need an Asamkhya Kalpa. An Asamkhya Kalpa is equal to 10 to the 51st power of the time it takes for the universe to go through the formation, existence, destruction, and emptiness. This is already so long that it is impossible to know how many lifetimes one has to go through. It is an incredibly long time. Then, to cultivate from the first level of Bodhisattva to the 7th level of Bodhisattva, it will take another Asamkhya Kalpa. And to cultivate from the 8th level of Bodhisattva to the 10th level of Bodhisattva, it will take another Asamkhya Kalpa. You have not yet achieved Buddhahood. You still need to pass through the 10.5 level of equal enlightenment Bodhisattva, and the 11th level of perfect enlightenment Bodhisattva, before you can officially attain Buddhahood. Now, why can the esoteric Buddhism claim to achieve Buddhahood through the current body in this lifetime? If you do not follow my teachings, focusing on the mind cultivation and Dharma practice, with the mind cultivation as the core, you will not be able to develop the awareness. If you cannot develop the awareness, you cannot achieve Buddhahood through the current body. Buddhahood through the current body is definitely not something you can achieve by simply receiving a few empowerments or practicing a few rituals. It is only an outer shell. Why can the esoteric Buddhism claim this, and why is it so different from the exoteric Buddhism? It is because the slightest difference in our levels can lead to a huge difference. There are certain things that separate us, and so we are very different. This is because the Mahayana exoteric teachings cultivate in the cause, not in the result. However, all the visualizations in the esoteric Buddhism are practiced in the result, and can enable us to transform the mind into wisdom, to train to develop the 5 kinds of wisdom. Its practice direction is to enhance the awareness. However, most current propagators of the esoteric Buddhism do not talk about these things. They only talk about empowerments, how powerful the deity you receive the empowerment from is, how many heads, how many hands and how many weapons it possesses. That is all they talk about. They only give you the rituals and that is all. What is the true awareness? If we stop promoting it, even the word awareness will disappear. Let me tell you, how do you interpret the word Buddha in Buddhism? Buddha means the awareness. This is a religion that develops your awareness. If we do not even talk about the awareness, Buddhism will essentially enter the Dharma ending age. What will happen then? It will be gone. Without it, you will not be able to succeed in Dharma practice. Okay. That is, if we want to become a Buddha, we must develop the awareness. From the very beginning, when we begin to cultivate the 10 beliefs, we must cultivate the awareness and connect our Dharma practice with it. What are the 10 beliefs? Stated in the names of sages and holies, the upper volume of the Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's primary karmas, the 10 beliefs are the mind of deep-seated confidence, sada, the mind of thoughtful awareness, the mind of diligence, the mind of wisdom, the mind of meditational concentration, the mind of no return of vinavataniya, the mind of dedicating merits, the mind of protecting the dharmas, the mind of observing precepts, and the mind of keeping vows. I have already explained these. Please refer to episodes 30, 31, and 32 of our Compassion series. In other words, if we want to achieve Buddhahood in the present lifetime, we must first connect with the awareness. This session will teach how our Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, teaches its disciples from the very beginning. How does the visualization we teach use balance from the very beginning? What is the method and what is its content? How can it play a balancing role? We will talk about these in this session. That is, if we want to have a good result, the result of the awareness, the result of becoming a Buddha, we must be very prudent when planting the cause. If the 10 beliefs you cultivate are unrelated to the awareness, then no matter how you practice, the awareness will not be developed. This is because of the effect of cause and effect. So, how can we cultivate the awareness? What is the awareness? It is so ethereal and illusory. You must use the methods we teach for cultivating the mind and Dharma practice. This is a comprehensive approach. It is not just about picking out a few bits and pieces, teaching a few words about emptiness, and calling it a day. It is not like that. You need the entire approach. Otherwise, you will not be able to apply it in your daily life. Firstly, you must have a mind-cultivating procedure. Otherwise, you will not be able to develop the awareness in your daily life. Secondly, you must adhere to the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions, not to abide in notions. There is also a more advanced oral pith instruction, not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. This means that not to abide in any notion, not to be attached, but not being an idiot. You need to develop the awareness. You also need to develop the 5 kinds of wisdom, and this must be accompanied by emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, in order to have a chance of success. Why do I repeat this in every session? Because I know you will have forgotten everything after 2 or 3 sessions, or even a week. So, I must repeat it. How can we truly achieve the goal of being free from pain, threat, or illness? If you follow the teachings of the Hinayana and exoteric Buddhism, you will escape. You will believe that pain is normal, that the body is merely a shell, not meant for Dharma practice. However, the esoteric Buddhism disagrees. This is called afflictions being body, treating one's own body as precious as the deity. If one can successfully cure any affliction, this will develop a certain kind of awareness, which will reverse or modify the relevant behavioral formula. Therefore, we call it afflictions being body, meaning that every affliction actually helps us cultivate. It is like adding the touch that brings a work of art to life. Originally, I was not quite sure where I was wrong, and I did not realize that there was something wrong with my behavioral formulas. But as afflictions arise, greed, hatred, and ignorance keep arising. Then I realize that I have greed, hatred, and ignorance, which I did not notice before. Being angry is being angry, it is normal. What is so strange about scolding others? Isn't it nice after scolding someone? But after practicing the Dharma, it will be different. Oh, Angry, I'm angry. I notice that I am angry, and then I notice that I have afflictions. Then I learn how to deal with them. When I can successfully deal with them, my awareness can be developed. In this way, I will have an experience. I will have the entire procedure. I can change my behavioral formulas in the future. This is the principle of afflictions being body. That is, afflictions can actually be transformed into body. Therefore, mentally, we should view afflictions as opportunities for developing the awareness. They are opportunities. Well, if your life has been smooth sailing, with no setbacks, and you only encounter setbacks at the moment of death, you would not even have the opportunity to train. On the other hand, if your life is filled with too much suffering, you would not be able to cultivate, either. You would be like someone stretching a rubber band and it is broken. So, what should we do? Within the entire esoteric Buddhist system, it turns out you need to practice certain methods to maintain a balance between the worldly and transcendental realms, so as not to break the rubber band. However, you also do not want to be completely free of all afflictions, as that would mean you lose the opportunity for the awareness, right? But if you do not follow the 5 steps of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice, during the treatment process, it will be very easy to become attached to notions. Once you become attached to notions, you will get stuck. If you are stuck and still have not untied this knot by the time you die, you will have to wait for the next life and start all over again. That will be a huge problem. Therefore, once you abide in notions, it will evolve into greed, hatred, and ignorance, which will become the main factor in your downward rebirth. So, we must avoid this. Since most of the esoteric Buddhist gurus today do not emphasize the practice of precepts and emptiness, most of the esoteric Buddhist practitioners become attached to notions, because there are too many matters in esoteric Buddhism, which becomes the main factor for their falling into rebirth. This is why Guru Rinpoche, also known as Padmanabhava, the founder of the Tibetan Buddhism, said, like a snake on a bamboo, it is either up or down. How do we at the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, help our disciples achieve this balance, ensuring they only rise and never fall? I will discuss this later. In esoteric Buddhism, what methods are there to achieve the goal of being free from pain, threats, and illness? From the moment we begin our Buddhist journey, disciples of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, are taught the meaning of renunciation. There is a 13-episode course called the 4 Preliminary Practices, which I ask them to watch. If some disciples have already entered the association, and have only been focusing on watching the 50 stanzas of Guru Devotion, the Compassion series and taking notes, but have not yet received authorization from the masters to watch the 13-episode 4 Preliminary Practices, please remember to email the gurus who will give you the relevant link and authorize you to watch the videos. You should start watching the videos. New disciples who have just taken refuge should also start watching them. In fact, we teach you about renunciation from the very beginning, and the videos also touch on this. But the problem is that the renunciation taught outside is somewhat different from what we teach now. Why? Because I want to explore more profound aspects. Renunciation has 2 meanings. The first is to leave all suffering behind. Therefore, we must deal with suffering wisely. How? We must not escape, and we must not abide in notions. These 2 elements are necessary. How can we leave all suffering behind? It turns out there are some visualizations to be done. How do we deal with suffering wisely? It turns out that the renunciation we often talk about is to hide in the mountains to cultivate. Our renunciation is to ignore everything, close the door and trap ourselves to cultivate. Isn't this renunciation? Many people understand it this way. Some people think that renunciation means avoiding bad people and approaching good people, leaving all bad things behind and focusing on the Dharma practice. This is called renunciation. We should aspire to escape the cycle of rebirth. This is called renunciation. However, when practicing this, there are actually 2 levels. First, you need to practice certain visualizations. These visualizations can help you escape suffering. Then, they can help you deal with suffering wisely, neither avoiding it nor abiding in the notion of it. This is the key to achieving balance. We will discuss this later. That is, while we are dealing with suffering, we need to be able to develop the awareness and handle it wisely, yet not to become entangled in it, or these methods, becoming absorbed in them day in and day out. This is how it should be. So, how can they help you? In fact, I am teaching the visualization practice of compassion and Borketa series for many episodes, including the 5 steps of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice. I have also covered the oral pith instructions from the Diamond Sutra. So, I have already taught you a lot. But we have not reached the most interesting part. You will not be taught visualization before you have taken the refuge. You will be taught not only on the theoretical aspect. What exactly will you be taught? I will describe that later. Secondly, you must be determined to completely escape the suffering of samsara. This is a deeper level. The question is, if you say, I want to completely escape samsara. This is called renunciation, then how do you do it? It is not something you can simply chant Namo Buddha Amitabha, or sit still in the mountains. To achieve this, you need to practice methods related to escaping samsara, or attaining Buddhahood. If your Dharma practice lacks these elements, then it is just empty talk. You cannot actually achieve it, right? Okay, let's discuss this now. Let's start with the first level, dealing with suffering wisely. What does it mean to be wise? Now let's talk about what it means to be wise. First, what do you need to deal with? When we do things, I want to tell you that in our daily lives, whether at work, at home, or even among friends, there are so many troubles and so many things to deal with. You must take all of these, 17,000 things, and first use a magnifying glass to look for the most important one. Of course, you do the most important one first, right? If you do things carelessly, you will be distracted and the most important things will not be dealt with. This may be your fatal injury, the reason for you to be fired, the reason for your family to break up, and the reason for all your friends to leave you. So, if you want to attain Buddhahood, through the current body in the present lifetime, you must first address certain issues. Now, you are learning Buddhism. Assuming that you have just taken refuge at the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, what should you address first, Guru? Your virtuous, evil karmic portfolio. If you do not deal with it properly, no matter how you practice the Dharma, it will be useless. It will surely be dragging you. Your fall into hell is also related to it. So, what should we do? In the virtuous evil karmic portfolio, there is both good and evil karma. Master, there are 2 things. Which should I deal with first? I can answer you, the good first. Why the good first? You do not have much energy. You do not even know how to visualize. So, you do not have much energy, right? Everything is created by the mind. Imagine you are in the spirit world, without a physical body. Hey! Help me create a pure land. Or maybe I have nothing to eat right now, so I can manifest some food so that I will not feel hungry. You do not understand anything about visualization, which means you do not have any energy at all. You can only rely on your own virtuous, the evil karmic portfolio. If you have planted, you will have blessings. If you have not, you will not have any. You cannot create it yourself. But it turns out that everything is created by the mind. You can actually create it yourself. But you did not have a master to teach you how to visualize while you were alive. So, you do not know how to create it. Do you know that it can be created? Yes, it can. If your Dharma practice is merely chanting Namo Buddha Amitabha, but you are unable to maintain focused in your mind without any confusion or inversion of disturbed thoughts for 1 to 7 days, you are unable to connect with Buddha Amitabha. Then even if you are starving or suffering, no one will come to save you. However, if I know how to visualize, things will be different. I can manifest an environment that allows me to escape my current suffering. It is supposed to do this. Now, it is impossible because I am trapped in a physical body. It is possible in the spiritual world, even in dreams. It is just that if you do not know how to control your dreams, then there is nothing you can do about it. If you can do this in dreams and in the spiritual world, what do you rely on? The kind of training you have had. What is based on? You have used your mind to manifest these things and connect with them. What else do you rely on? Energy. This is the energy I am talking about. If you have done this kind of training, you will have this energy. If you have not done it before, you will not have this energy. First, let's say my good karma is not sufficient. I have no idea if it can withstand the arising of negative karma. If I were to fall into the 3 lower realms, I do not know if I could resist and be pulled back. That is, your good karma is crucial. Our first step is to strengthen our good karma and increase our energy. Otherwise, even seeking the Dharma, studying the Dharma, and cultivating it, we may not achieve success or reach the desired level. So, what should we do first to deal with our negative karma? Otherwise, you will not be able to reach that level. Therefore, we must focus on good deeds. The accumulation of merit from good deeds is divided into 3 levels. Remember these 3 levels. If you only focus on one level, your progress will be very slow, requiring 3 great asamkhya kalpa to achieve success. If you only possess 2 of the 3, or lack 1, then your progress will be slightly slower. However, it will still be faster than 3 great asamkhya kalpa. So, the best is to have all 3 levels. In fact, when the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, teaches their disciples to practice visualization, all 3 levels are taught from the start. Let's look at the 3 levels. The first level, the 6 paramitas, which are found in the exoteric teachings. The problem is that the exoteric Buddhism only teaches you to practice the 6 paramitas, to do more good deeds, without accompanying them with visualizations. It would not work if the 6 paramitas do not work with visualizations. Didn't we already explain this in the last session? A disciple asked, many people are asking for help online, asking for donations. So, should we help them or not? I've also seen many disasters happening online. How should I respond? These things actually need to be accompanied by visualizations and prayers. We have internal teachings on this. I will explain this in detail in the future. After all, some new disciples who have recently joined have not learned these before. So, I need to teach them again. If the 6 paramitas are not accompanied by visualizations, it will take you 3 great asamkhya kalpa. However, if you work with visualizations, there is a chance of achieving Buddhahood in the present lifetime. The second level requires you to do a kind of visualization, which aims to achieve the merit of a direct connection with the Buddha. This must be accompanied by visualizations. Without visualization, you rely on chanting the Buddha's holy names, connecting with the Buddha at the speed of sound. This basically will not even penetrate a vacuum. You are likely cutting the ropes, making success very difficult. The third is establishing a connection with the highest helper in the world. It turns out that we are now in the 3 realms, and everything is subject to the law of cause and effect. Well, after reading the Heart Sutra, you think that there is nothing, and you can regard everything as nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing at all. That is enough. This is the highest realm. Then, you ignore the fact that you are not in the Dharma realm. You keep reciting the Heart Sutra, but you are still in the 3 realms and not in the Dharma realm. How can you say that you are completely empty? No matter how many times you say empty, it is useless. The result is that if you have no money for food, you still have no money for food. When you are hungry, your stomach lining will be worn out. This is cause and effect. That is, since you are in the 3 realms, you must have some worldly support related to the 3 realms and practice these methods. You must possess all 3 levels. If you only have worldly knowledge and no transcendental knowledge, that is, you lack the merit of a direct connection with the Buddha. If you do not do this, you will not be able to make it. So, even if we do it, what should we do? All support must be accompanied by visualizations. That is, it is not just about physically doing it. Of course, the 6 paramitas involve helping the poor, donating money, and so on. So, by donating money, you are doing it with your body. You're also doing it with your speech, because you are comforting that person. So, what about the mind? Have you done it? Have you visualized with your mind? No. Do you know that in the previous sessions on a real case of the Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni has made it very clear that you must have the mind, among the 3, body, speech, and mind. The mind is the most important, and it has the greatest impact. Therefore, without visualizations, it would essentially take 3 great asamkhya kalpa to succeed in Dharma practice. What is the difference? The 6 paramitas are about gathering the power of all sentient beings. If combined with visualizations, it can connect with the power of all virtuous gods. Do you know that some people do good deeds, thinking that they are only just doing small acts of kindness, helping others, nothing special? However, what you do may have touched the spiritual world, or even touched an entire community of virtuous gods who love to help others. Do you know that the whole group of virtuous gods, moved by your actions, are now going to help you as much as they can? In other words, in the end, you will find that you have only provided a small amount of help to that person, but somehow, the support you receive is greatly increased. This is determined by whether you have worked with visualizations. You might say that everything you do can be seen. The problem is that although the spiritual world is vast and omnipresent in the 3 realms, not every spiritual group has the ability to know you, like a Buddha pervading everywhere. The problem is that if a Buddha transcends the 3 realms, his awareness, if not in samadhi, will not be all-pervading. He will still be confined to the boundary of his Buddha's particular pure land. In other words, he has certain limitations. Once you enter the 3 realms, everything becomes subject to correspondence, everything is subject to cause and effect, and everything has limitations. What is limitless? Only the Dharma realm is limitless. Therefore, do not confuse the Buddhas in the Dharma realm with the Buddhas in the 3 realms. Otherwise, you might ask, why, after attaining Buddhahood, did Buddha Shakyamuni still have to endure 10 kinds of karmic retribution, unable to shake it off? He could not shake it off even when he climbed to heaven or earth, and yet his foot was still pierced by a wooden stake, causing him excruciating pain. The reason for this is because you are in the 3 realms, and even Buddhas in the 3 realms have limitations. Do you understand? Therefore, you need to be able to visualize. Only with visualizations can you achieve a broader scope. You could potentially move a 360-degree, boundless group of virtuous gods. Then, in the future, wherever you go in the 360-degree 3 realms, there will be someone to help you. In this way, even if you really fall into hell, someone will definitely save you, right? This means that if you do not visualize while doing the 6 paramitas, there will be a huge difference, a huge difference. You can only sense a small, possibly limited, group of virtuous gods. You are not able to influence the entire 360-degree, infinitely vast group of virtuous gods. This requires visualization. Okay, then, the second level, the merit of direct connection with the Buddha. What does it gather? The power of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. If you can do this with visualizations, you can accumulate merits and be reborn in a Buddha's pure land. You yearn for a Buddha's pure land all day long, yet you do not know what it means to escape samsara, or attain Buddhahood. You feel these matters have nothing to do with you. Actually, they are matters that concern you. If you know how to seize the opportunity when you die, you could attain Buddhahood through the current body. If you miss the opportunity, you may as well reach a Buddha's pure land. There are many levels of Buddha's pure lands. Those in the lower levels will be burned to ashes when the 3 calamities of heaven and earth occur. They might even burn down to the form realm heaven. You will burn to death. If you follow your karma, your good karma will have already been used up, because you have been enjoying the blessings of heaven for so long. When it is your turn to suffer the consequences of your bad karma, you will go to hell. In other words, do not assume that reaching a Buddha's pure land guarantees salvation. This is a huge misunderstanding. That is, some people, in an effort to deceive others, claim that chanting Buddha's holy names a few times will ensure one's arrival in a Buddha's pure land and eternal liberation from samsara. This is deceiving. If you cannot enter the 5 heavens of no returning, the highest 5 levels of the form realm heaven, there is no way you can escape samsara. The lower heavens will be affected by the 3 calamities. So, you need to understand this clearly. Since you can practice the esoteric Buddhism, do not set your goals too low. The highest goal is to attain Buddhahood. A lower goal is to escape samsara if you fail to achieve that. And a further lower goal is to reach a Buddha's pure land if you also fail that. That is how you should set your goals, right? There is no reason to set a lowest aim. The highest is only to reach the Buddha's land. Oh, I don't care about escaping from the cycle of reincarnation or becoming a Buddha. Do you know that if you set your goal so low, you may fall into the 3 lower realms? Because you may not necessarily reach the highest level and go to a Buddha's pure land. If you go a little lower, aren't you going downwards? So, remember, you must do a kind of visualization and obtain the merit of directly connecting with the Buddha. The third one is establishing a connection with the highest worldly supports. This again requires visualizations. This integrates worldly supports. Are these worldly supports different from the help of connecting with virtuous gods mentioned earlier through the 6 paramitas? Yes, there is a difference. There are many kinds of virtuous gods, just as there are many kinds of Dharma protectors. Some have very low abilities, some are medium, and some are extremely powerful. What I am talking about now is establishing a connection with the highest kind of auxiliary force in the world. It is about cultivating those. Do you understand? Furthermore, you need to act accordingly, focusing on what you lack most. This is about integrating worldly auxiliary forces. If you combine this with visualizations, you can accumulate support to balance the contradiction between the worldly and the transcendental, aiding your Dharma practice. Even if you practice the 6 paramitas well, sometimes balance can be difficult. Some disciples ask, should I donate or not? I only have this much money. If I give it all away, I won't have money for food. But if I don't donate, it seems I can't fulfill the 6 paramitas. There are so many fundraising requests online, from people who say they have no money for food, need medical treatment, and so on. Which ones should I trust? This already has many contradictions. I can't figure out the worldly and transcendental aspects of this matter no matter how much I think about it. These are one thing, and what I am talking about now, with the highest support in the world, is something else entirely. I am saying that they have great power in the world and the 3 realms, and they can specifically help you with certain things you lack. There is no imbalance. This is different from the 6 paramitas, which can easily conflict with the transcendental world. This highest worldly support is unlikely to conflict with supramundane dharmas. Rather, it easily creates a balance. Therefore, there are 3 levels. In other words, integrating worldly supports is of the world. The 6 paramitas and the 10,000 practices are all of the world. The visualizations in the middle, those that involve a direct connection with the Buddha, are supramundane. I am still talking about the things you should pay attention to when you have just started. I have yet to cover what comes after you have practiced the Dharma for a while. I am talking about what you should do when you are just starting out. If you do not do all of these things when you first start, you will not be able to achieve success. You skip grades, you skip classes. Skipping classes is the same as repeating a class. Why? Because you do not have a solid foundation. You jump to receive endless empowerments and practice numerous rituals. But in reality, you have not sorted out your virtuous or evil karmic portfolio. You have not done any of the 3 levels of good deeds, and only focus on visualizing the deity. You say, no. Isn't visualizing the deity the same as the merit of being directly connected to the Buddha? Isn't it about connecting to the deity? It turns out that there is a difference. In fact, accumulating merit that can help you in the world and directly visualizing and connecting with the Buddha, reaching a Buddha's pure land, or attaining Buddhahood are two different things, two different levels. Now, I am talking about the initial level of dealing with the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio. They are different. So, how do we do it? I will now focus on this. How can I cultivate the merit of directly connecting with Buddhas and transforming my virtuous, evil karmic portfolio? Let me explain it. The first of the introductory teachings of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, the visualization of the 8 auspicious signs, can be divided into two levels. Many people think they can just buy a set of the 8 auspicious signs from Taobao and place them on their Buddhist altar. Or, they think, oh, my guru has conferred me with the 8 auspicious signs empowerment, and held a blessing ceremony called the 8 auspicious signs Dharma assembly. I've already attended that, so that's all I need. There is a huge difference, a huge difference. It is not about this level. What level is it about? First, we need to practice the visualization method of accumulating the 8 auspicious merits. We must do this from the very beginning of our Dharma practice. Otherwise, there will be many obstacles. I have many disciples, some of whom have taken refuge for 20 years. In fact, I started teaching this visualization shortly after they took refuge. However, some of them have been lazy and do not practice it. As a result, they cannot accumulate the 8 auspicious merits and encounter many obstacles. They may only practice once a year, which is not enough. Do you understand? Also, it is divided into two levels. The second level has yet to be taught. The second level is to apply the 8 auspicious merits from the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio. They must be proficient in the 5 steps of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice, and have a certain level of application before teaching them. Otherwise, they will become attached to notions. Why? Why are there two levels? The first level is called accumulation of merits, the accumulation of the 8 auspicious merits. The second level is about application. In fact, accumulation alone does not automatically lead to application. After all good karma is accumulated, it is placed within the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio. It will not automatically come to your aid just because you are having trouble. It is not like that. It turns out that within our virtuous, evil karmic portfolio, whether good or bad, it does not emerge based on your needs. It emerges based on the condition of karma. Whether or not one emerges is determined by certain conditions. Sometimes, these conditions are based on a timeline. For example, long ago, certain good conditions accumulated. Because they have been accumulated for a long time, when the time is right, they will emerge. Some are newly accumulated good karma. So, they will not emerge as they are waiting in line for their turn. That is how it is. So, who determines the condition? Sometimes it is determined by the time sequence of good and evil karma, and sometimes it is the appearance of some conditions that you do not understand. Some are due to karma, and some are caused by your karmic creditors, who come to you and help you trigger it. What are the karmic creditors? Some enemies are those who have a grudge against you, while some are relatives, meaning relatives from past lives, benefactors to whom you have done favors, and some are enemies. In other words, among your enemies, relatives, and creditors, anyone connected to you, whether good or bad, will appear. They are one of the conditions. They are also one of the conditions that create your karmic retributions. Your own mind power is also one of the conditions. The question is, does your mind power help you trigger good karma or bad karma? In fact, you can decide. But if you do not learn how to practice the Dharma, you will only allow your greed, hatred, and ignorance to control you. In this way, your greed, hatred, and ignorance will inevitably help you to trigger the evil karma. Who actually creates such a cause? It is you, not your karmic creditors. It is done by your own behavioral formulas. There are many kinds of conditions, but you yourself play a very important role. But now that you have learned how to practice the Dharma, you must learn how to create some visualizations, because everything is created by the mind, and use these visualizations to create a condition, and this condition will only trigger good karma. You may say, I have $100 saved in the bank. This is all I have in the bank. This is my good karma, my good deeds. Now I want to withdraw this $100 to use. Well, if you do not have money to use, you can go to the bank to withdraw it, right? However, if you are not in urgent need of money, but have other difficulties. For example, you have had a quarrel with your loved ones, are very sad, and feel that you have lost their love and connection with you. This may not be something that money can solve. You may need another kind of good karma to help you. In this case, you may not know how to go to the bank to withdraw your deposit. How can you use your good karma to help solve the problem? To resolve the grievances between you and your relatives, it depends on whether you know how to do these visualizations. These visualizations can be used in response to your own needs, creating a condition and allowing you to use the good karma in your virtuous, evil karmic portfolio that corresponds to the good karma you need from people other than your family. There are many kinds of good karma. Some are related to wealth, some are related to longevity, some may be related to relationships with certain people. That is, interpersonal relationships. And some are related to your career or financial fortunes. There are many different types. The question is, if you take out the good karma from the virtuous, the evil karmic portfolio, can you get a corresponding one? If you cannot get the corresponding one, it will be useless. If you use the good karma innocently, but it is not the right remedy, it will not help to resolve the relationship between you and your loved ones. Thus, good karma is used, but the problem is not solved. This phenomenon occurs. Everything in the law of cause and effect requires correspondence. Therefore, you must learn to practice this kind of visualization. This kind of visualization requires correspondence, a genuine accumulation of good karma, and an ability to practice and apply this method. This is what we call a visualization practice of application. This has not been taught yet. It can only be taught to someone who has already cultivated their mind and practiced the Dharma well. Otherwise, something bad will happen. This explains why we only draw on it when necessary. Otherwise, your good karma will be ordered by conditions, appearing according to the order of conditions, not according to your needs. So, we need to learn a Dharma practice, which is to create conditions, another type of visualization. It has not been taught yet. I have not taught it at the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. Why? Because I have not finished teaching the mind cultivation and Dharma practice. I am still at the 43rd episode. It has been almost 4 years. And it is not finished yet. Therefore, I was able to teach the first level, teaching them to first understand accumulation. If they listen to the Master's teachings, learn, and diligently practice, they will first accumulate the 8 auspicious merits. Then, if troubles arise, they are resolved according to the order of causes and conditions. These good karmas will emerge, and problems will be resolved. If not, and I have not taught it, there is nothing I can do. Why can you not teach it earlier? Let me explain. The first level is called no escape. This means you cannot avoid troubles. You must face them. Since you have to face them, you must address them with the right remedy. You need to find the right remedy to resolve it. This is no escape. However, you also need to not abide in any notion. How can you not abide in any notion? It means that you need to use the 5 steps of the method of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice, mentioned earlier, to extract a certain kind of auspiciousness, to correspond to the good karma from the virtuous, the evil karmic portfolio. This auspiciousness is specifically designed to help you solve the problem. This is how it will help you. As such, you create the right conditions to solve the problem. This way, your good karma will be effectively used, not wasted. It will be used effectively, appropriately, and correctly, ultimately leading to success. This is the technique. However, this has not been taught yet. This is the 2 levels of practice we have discussed for the 8 auspicious signs. I have taught the first level called no escape. The other, called not abiding in notions, has yet to be taught. Because within the law of cause and effect, we must deal with things accordingly. Avoiding only leads to frustration, and a feeling of being unable to hide, and ultimately, we cannot escape. As you know, Buddha Shakyamuni could not escape that wooden spear, even in heaven or on earth. The spear ultimately pierced his foot. There is no way you can escape it. Since there is no way to escape, why not just face it? Buddha Shakyamuni did just that. However, in the face of danger, whether we can avoid death or minimize harm is a matter of skill. So, what should we do? We must prepare early. How do we prepare early? You should be practicing the method of the 8 auspicious signs. I teach all my disciples from the moment they begin, but do they actually practice? I do not know. I assume they do. If I teach you but you do not practice, you are foolish. I tell you to save up the 8 auspicious merits in the bank, so that when you really need them, I can teach you how to use them. Why teach it so late? How can you apply it? If I teach you too soon and you abide in the notions, that would be even worse. If you can cultivate without abiding in the notions, and it can especially help you reach the Buddha's pure land, wouldn't that be better? Of course, it is best to use it when you need it most, right? What is the origin of the 8 auspicious signs? They are, in fact, the merits directly connected to Buddhas. When Buddha Shakyamuni was born, the heavenly beings presented the most precious treasures in the universe as a congratulatory gift. The value of these 8 treasures lies in the fact that they used precious worldly materials to combine the 8 auspicious parts of the Buddha's body with practical objects, offering them to Buddha Shakyamuni. This is stated in the sutras. It has a source. It combines the Buddha's body, speech, and mind into one. Let's explain it now, and then I will tell you why it is connected this way. The first is the parasol, representing the Buddha's head. Known in Han Chinese as the white parasol, it shields against the scorching sun, wind and rain. Because parasols were used exclusively by royalty and aristocracy in ancient India, they also symbolize dignity and power. In Dharma practice, offering the parasol to the Buddha and the Guru can obtain the protection of the Guru and eliminate obstacles in our Dharma practice. Secondly, offering the parasol on the Buddhist altar can bring protection, and can also pray for all sentient beings, oneself, relatives, etc. To be free from worries, pain and obstacles in reincarnation, and can help sentient beings rely on the Dharma and practice it safely. Well, since this white parasol has such a good effect, giving you noble majesty, giving you protection, and allowing you to practice the Dharma without obstacles and pain, this kind of auspiciousness is exactly what we need. Did we not talk about our second need earlier, which is how your Dharma can help people avoid suffering and how to cope with suffering? Were we not talking about these things? The Hinayana will only try to avoid it, and it is best to pretend not to see it, right? The exoteric teachings are the same. But not with the esoteric Buddhism. Instead, one must face it. How do we face it? I practice some Dharma, create a condition, accumulate some auspiciousness, create some good conditions, and also create a condition and apply it. That's how it should be done. This is precisely what it means to confront the problem while possessing wisdom, avoiding abiding in its notion, and still resolving it. This is the esoteric Buddhist method for addressing the need to avoid pain, threats, or illness. It must be combined with visualizations, and can be divided into 2 levels. But what is currently taught out there does not distinguish between these 2 levels. It does not teach you what it means to not escape, or not abide in notions. It does not teach either. Without these 2 things, there is no balance. Even if you are given the 8 auspicious signs, and then the so-called 8 auspicious sign empowerment, and then blessed with 8 kinds of auspiciousness, it is all useless. You have only saved a little and put it in your piggy bank, adding a few extra dollars. Are these few dollars of 8 auspicious signs enough? Do you know how to use them appropriately? You do not even understand the concept of applying. Have you accumulated the so-called 8 auspicious merits through daily visualization and practice? No. Have you only been conferred with an empowerment? That way, you gain very little, only a few dollars. You need a lot, don't you? Because throughout the entire Dharma practice, you need many kinds of auspicious merits. Therefore, it is essential to have both. I have already taught the first level to my disciples. Are they practicing it? I do not know. If you do not practice it, you will truly be left with nothing but a few dollars. Remember to practice. The second is called the golden fish. The golden fish represents the eyes of the Buddha. The golden fish is composed of two goldfish. Because goldfish eyes are always open, they symbolize the Buddha's compassionate gaze upon and care for all sentient beings. In Dharma practice, offering the golden fish to the Buddha and the Guru ensures the Guru's constant care and unwavering support. Offering the golden fish on the Buddhist altar brings compassionate care and allows one to pray for all sentient beings, including oneself and one's loved ones, to receive warmth and support from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world. Remember, offerings at the altar benefit not only you but also your loved ones. During Dharma practice, can you visualize that your loved ones also receive these auspicious blessings? Of course, you can. However, I have not taught this yet. I have only taught you how to save money, to build up your own bank first. In the future, I will teach you how to help your loved ones as well. So, how does the esoteric Buddhism address the need to be free from pain, threats, or illnesses? How can you obtain constant care, unwavering love, warmth and support? It is by offering the golden fish. Even your needs for social interaction, love and belonging can be met. However, visualization is essential, and it should be divided into two levels. One is no escape, and the other is not abiding in notions. Both types of visualizations are necessary. The third one is called the treasure vase. The treasure vase represents the neck of the Buddha. Because the Dharma was transmitted from the mouth of the Buddha, it is the greatest treasure of all. Hence the name treasure vase. In worldly terms, what does it symbolize? Wealth, the gathering place of all treasures. Therefore, in Dharma practice, if we offer the treasure vase to the Buddha and the Guru, we can receive the essentials of Dharma practice from the Guru so that we can quickly achieve success. If you offer the treasure vase on the altar, you can pray for all sentient beings, yourself, your family, etc., to receive assistance from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world, and to fulfill our spiritual and material resources and wishes. In other words, this is a practice that can quickly achieve success in Dharma practice, and it can also provide us with spiritual and material support and assistance, thus helping us avoid suffering and threats. These are all ancillary forces, and they can certainly help us, right? Not only that, but it can also even satisfy physiological needs. However, remember that it must be combined with visualizations, and there are two levels of visualizations, one called no escape, and the other called not abiding in notions. The fourth is called the lotus flower representing the Buddha's tongue, symbolizing the radiance of a lotus. That is, when the Buddha preaches, his speech is fluent, smooth, and brilliant, like a golden lotus, making it easy for sentient beings to grasp the Buddha's knowledge and insights. Therefore, the lotus symbolizes the Buddha's tongue. In Dharma practice, by offering the lotus flower to the Buddha and the Guru will teach you the essentials of Dharma practice through wisdom words and mantras, guiding you to realize and attain the Buddha's knowledge and insights. If you offer the lotus flower on the Buddhist altar, you can pray for all sentient beings, yourself, your family, etc. to receive the guidance of wisdom from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world. It is like watching so many videos on YouTube and then, at some point, you suddenly click on the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International's TV channel, and see a lot of teachings on Dharma practice. These are all guided by the wisdom of Buddhism, and they are explained clearly so that you can understand them. These are the ones that are useful. These are things that will help you understand and practice the Dharma. These things require a certain kind of auspiciousness to achieve. In the future, you might even be able to teach the Dharma and help others. That is even better. All of this can lead you to the Buddha's knowledge and insights, enabling you to understand the Dharma's teachings and comprehend them. If you truly comprehend them, they can help you escape suffering. You will understand that afflictions are indeed body, and you will know how to face suffering. If you can explain the Dharma, you will naturally be respected. This way, your need for respect will also be satisfied. You can also achieve your need for self-actualization. Because you can understand all the dharmas, you will naturally be able to succeed in your Dharma practice. You will achieve all of these needs. However, you must work with visualizations, not just offering. Furthermore, both levels of visualization are required. Both no escape and not abiding in notions must be present. The fifth is called the conch shell, which represents the three necklines of the Buddha, or the Dharma sound, spreading out wave after wave, life after life, never ceasing to benefit sentient beings, just like the white ocean. The white ocean represents purity. The Dharma is pure. The ocean of the Dharma is like the pure sound of the white ocean, vast and melodious. It enables all sentient beings to understand the Dharma after hearing it. Therefore, we should make offerings to the Dharma. When offering this conch shell, we must remember that it is best to choose the right rotating ones. There are left rotating and right rotating ones, and the right rotating ones are the best. In Dharma practice, if we offer the conch shell to the Buddha and the Guru, we can obtain the Guru's continuous and endless transmission of the essentials of Dharma practice, and we can understand them. We can even obtain the authorization to transmit the Dharma. This is like our constant teachings of the Dharma, uploading them to the YouTube, so you can continue to hear them. This is done through the conch shell. The YouTube can be considered the modern equivalent of the conch shell. Secondly, offering the conch shell on the Buddhist altar allows one to pray for all sentient beings, including oneself and one's family, to receive assistance from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world, allowing them to have the opportunity to hear the Dharma. Even the YouTube requires someone to operate it. It requires such opportunities. Those who spread the Dharma in the past were miserable, because they lacked these opportunities. We now have this wonderful opportunity, making it easy to spread the Dharma. If we joyfully believe in and uphold the Dharma, we may even be able to help spread it in the future. As long as you can speak of the Dharma and spread it to them, they will understand how to avoid suffering, how to face suffering, and how to resolve it. This will help them. And if you do this, you will be respected, satisfying your need for respect. It will also help you satisfy your need for self-actualization. However, all of these must be accompanied by visualizations. Without visualizations, I can tell you, the effect will be much weaker, perhaps only 10% effective. So, you must do it with visualizations, and you must not escape, and not abide in notions. The sixth is the endless knot. The endless knot represents the Buddha's heart, and is also known as the eternal knot. This knot has no beginning and no end, representing the Buddha's heart, which is vast, complete, and boundless, overflowing with wisdom. It is like the awareness, filling the void. This knot is actually formed by interlacing two WAN characters, symbolizing the heart channel. This is how we visualize our heart channel chakra. In Dharma practice, offering the endless knot to the Buddha and the Guru symbolizes the ability to communicate with the Guru through heart-to-heart communications, leading to swift attainment. By offering the endless knot on the Buddhist altar, one can pray for all sentient beings, oneself, and relatives to connect with the heart of the Buddha and gain endless wisdom. One can also receive blessings of good fortune in all things. Remember, we often refer the esoteric Buddhism to something with yoga. Yoga means correspondence. Everything depends on something being in correspondence with something else. What is used to correspond with the Buddha's heart exactly? The endless knot. You may say, why don't I simply visualize the Buddha's heart directly? Isn't it okay to visualize that the Buddha's heart is my heart? Why do I need to visualize an additional auspicious knot? The endless knot is your heart channel, which means that it can be connected to the Buddha's heart channel and heart chakra. Corresponding the heart with the heart is the most direct way. Therefore, we must find things in the world as representatives and connect them to a certain part of Buddha. Why? The Buddha is in the Dharma realm, and you are in the three realms. The three realms only have auspicious knots and conch shells, which you can clearly see. But can you see the Buddha? You can only see the statue, perhaps. But you may not be connected to the deeper meaning within it. Even if you can visualize the appearance of the Buddha, you can only be connected to his body. But do you have the energy to connect to such a distance and correspond with him? Not necessarily. However, there is a kind of magnetic field called the auspicious magnetic field. There are 8 kinds of auspicious magnetic fields in this world, in the 3 realms, which exactly correspond to the body of the Buddha. This will make it easier for us to connect with this auspicious magnetic field, and also help us connect more easily with the Buddha. So, you cannot view it as an indirect connection. It is actually a direct connection. What are its benefits? It helps you obtain the 8 auspicious merits. But what if we want to become a Buddha, or escape samsara? We will directly visualize the deity. I visualize myself as the deity, myself as this Buddha. This is how we connect. This connection is achieved after completing the initial preparatory work and entering the formal practice. We must cultivate a formal practice, a correct visualization that can lead to Buddhahood or liberation from samsara. However, that is still a shell, and of course it must be accompanied by the core practice of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice. In the initial stages of cultivation, we need a great deal of auspiciousness. Otherwise, we will encounter many obstacles and be unable to continue. We can mess things up right after taking refuge and become unable to continue. There may be family disagreements or other obstacles. We must have these 8 auspicious merits. That is, we must connect to the 8 auspicious magnetic fields of the world. These 8 auspicious magnetic fields are connected to different parts of the Buddha's body. That is, to the Buddha. Then, you will have both. You will be able to connect to the Buddha and the auspicious magnetic fields. This way, the benefits will be greater. I am referring to the benefits of helping you solve worldly problems, not the benefits of becoming a Buddha and escaping the cycle of reincarnation. These are 2 different things. Well, all of these can help you meet your needs for social connection, love, and belonging. Why? Because it is a heart-to-heart connection, making it easier to achieve these needs. It can also help you meet your needs for respect and self-actualization. Because it is a heart-to-heart connection. However, it must be accompanied by visualizations, and it must be divided into 2 levels, namely no escape, and not abiding in notions. The 7th is called the victory banner, representing the Buddha's Dharma body, the supreme enlightenment. Within the universe, no one, nothing, and no person can surpass the Buddha's supreme enlightenment. The Buddha represents the victory banner. In ancient times, the pennant symbolized victory, representing victory through overcoming afflictions and attaining perfect enlightenment. The Buddha's constant teachings, aiding sentient beings in overcoming afflictions and achieving liberation, symbolize eternal dignity and victory. Therefore, in Dharma practice, if we offer the victory banner to the Buddha and the Guru, it symbolizes that we can fight side by side with the Guru, save sentient beings, overcome afflictions and achieve victory, and rely on the Guru to achieve supreme perfect enlightenment. If we offer the victory banner on the Buddhist altar, we can pray for all sentient beings, ourselves, our relatives, etc. to receive assistance from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world, to overcome all troubles and achieve the most complete victory. If we can obtain all of these things and if we have this kind of awareness, it will definitely help us to avoid suffering, face and resolve suffering. This includes illnesses, which we can face. It can also help us develop our 3rd need, the need for social interactions, and our 4th need, the need for respect. Because of the perfect enlightenment, you possess all of these kinds of awareness. You can certainly achieve self-realization, thanks to the perfect enlightenment. Therefore, we must possess this kind of auspiciousness, which represents victory over afflictions. If we can overcome afflictions, we can certainly face suffering, right? However, it must be accompanied by visualizations. It is not just a theory. It also needs to be divided into 2 levels, no escape, and not abiding in notions. The eighth is called the Dharma wheel. The Dharma wheel represents the palms and feet of the Buddha. These palms and feet are decorated with 1,000 golden wheels, symbolizing the Buddha's all-encompassing teachings, their invincibility, their universal salvation, and his constant turning of the Dharma wheel. The axle of the golden wheel represents precepts. Look at the entire golden wheel. There are axles supporting the entire wheel, one after another. This is like our precepts, supporting our mind, allowing us to continue practicing the Dharma and avoid violating the precepts. Through them, we can keep our mind stable. In the middle are the round spokes. They appear empty, but what are they actually? They represent emptiness, wisdom, and the ability to sever ignorance. The rim represents awareness and concentration, or meditational concentration. Without the wheel frame, one cannot establish the precepts, and without establishing the spokes, one cannot attain emptiness. Therefore, the wheel frame represents the integration of the three disciplines: precepts, meditational concentration, and wisdom. The Dharma wheel symbolizes the harmony and perfection of the Dharma. It has no beginning or end, and it can move and stop in an instant. As you know, a wheel can suddenly start and stop, right? It represents the harmony and perfection of our Dharma. Therefore, the Dharma wheel represents the completeness and perfection of the Dharma, as well as the aspiration to spread it widely. If we offer the Dharma wheel to the Buddha and the Guru, it symbolizes that we can obtain the three disciplines of precepts, meditational concentration, and wisdom from the Guru, making them indestructible and helping the Guru to benefit all sentient beings and constantly turn the Dharma wheel. We may even inherit the Dharma and continue to turn the Dharma wheel in the future. In addition, if you offer the Dharma wheel on the Buddhist altar, you can pray for all sentient beings, including yourself, your family, etc., to receive assistance from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, and all sentient beings in the world, so that we can have some conveniences in the world. That is, in our daily Dharma practice, we should not abandon the Dharma and follow the Dharma wheel to enter the right path. All of this, not abandoning the Dharma and the three disciplines of precepts, meditational concentration, and wisdom, can help us escape suffering, threats, or illness. We need this kind of auspiciousness. It can also help us meet our social needs, our need for respect, and our need for self-actualization. However, this cannot be achieved merely through theory alone. You must complete 2 levels of visualization. One is called no escape, and the other is called not abiding in notions. You will see that these 8 auspicious merits are each connected to a different part of the Buddha's body. As explained earlier, accumulating good karma and merits can be divided into 3 levels. This level is extremely important because it will help you determine whether you can escape samsara, whether you can cultivate and attain Buddhahood, and whether you can continue your Dharma practice. This is a very important merit. All of this requires visualizations. We must connect to auspicious magnetic fields. Otherwise, we will allow our own virtuous, evil karmic portfolio to connect to those negative magnetic fields. This will cause us to encounter many obstacles and be unable to cultivate. In other words, we will not even be able to enter a Buddhist temple without being pulled back. This is because we have not connected to the auspicious magnetic field, so we must learn to connect. The auspicious magnetic field must be connected to the Buddha's body. It is not enough to just have worldly auspicious magnetic fields. These auspicious magnetic fields must be connected to the Buddha. After connecting with parts of the Buddha, you will then enter the Buddha's realm through these 8 auspicious magnetic fields. That is, you will easily enter the Dharma realm. The most auspicious things will carry you into the Dharma realm, and you will not be withdrawn. That is how it works. Do you understand what I mean? Do you have something else holding you back from entering? If you do not connect to the Buddha, would it be enough to just connect to the 8 auspicious magnetic fields? If it has nothing to do with the Buddha, you will not be able to enter the Dharma realm. You must connect and know that the parasol represents the Buddha's head. You must connect with everything, right? If you are not completely connected, how can you enter the Dharma realm? You may disagree. I visualize the emptiness and the appearance of the Buddha, and that's enough. You are lacking the auspiciousness. You may not be able to succeed in your Dharma practice no matter how hard you cultivate. You may visualize yourself to look very similar, but your mind cultivation is very poor. And you do not have much auspiciousness. You may become the person I mentioned in the previous session, who became an arhat, but had nothing to eat and was extremely hungry. Why was that? Because he did not practice those dharmas, did not cultivate blessings, and perhaps did not know how to visualize. So, what about you practicing the esoteric Buddhism? The esoteric Buddhism is very different from the exoteric Buddhism. From the very beginning, an esoteric Buddhist must cultivate these 8 auspicious merits that connect with the Buddha. In the future, these 8 auspicious merits will carry you forward, allowing you to enter the Dharma realm without obstacles. I have taught you and you must practice every day. Otherwise, where can you find the 8 auspicious magnetic fields to help you? Well, you must possess these 8 auspicious merits to meet the 5 needs in Dharma practice and in life. You are currently still in the 3 realms, and you have 5 needs, all of which are met. When you die, you will go to the Dharma realm, and this will help you enter the Dharma realm. Therefore, cultivating these 8 auspicious merits is essential to achieving spiritual enlightenment and rapid attainment in this evil world of the 5 turbidities. Otherwise, one will continue to cycle through reincarnation for 3 great asamkhya kalpa. The 8 auspicious signs are a transcendental dharma. If you wish to practice without obstacles, you need to add more things. You must also connect with the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch, which are a worldly dharma. You must strike a balance between the transcendental and worldly dharmas. Only then will your Dharma practice be less arduous. Otherwise, you will encounter numerous obstacles, making your Dharma practice incredibly difficult. A disciple emailed me with a question, and I can use this answer to reply to him. He said, I understand from studying Buddhism that when a person dies, it is the end of a life. The deceased and I will meet due to karma, and there will be retribution, but the next life will also begin. If I were still trapped in samsara, unable to escape, and we were still going through different lives, I would see the end of life and understand the importance of practicing the Dharma. Death is actually an opportunity for Dharma practitioners, he said. But I can't practice in the mountains. What he meant was that he is still in the 3 realms, in the 5 turbidities. He said, I often have to face the passing of loved ones. After they pass away, I often still think of the places they were in, and recall or think of their suffering. I try not to think about it. I know this is wrong, but I can't let it go. I know constantly abiding in the suffering of my loved ones won't heal me, because I'm connected to them, to their suffering. I know this is terribly wrong. Because I am thinking, I am actually increasing the suffering of my loved ones. As my great master taught me, everything is created by the mind. That is, your loved one was originally well and reborn in a good place, but you keep thinking about how miserable he was. This would affect that relative, who was about to be reborn well, and now is connected to you. For unknown reasons, they become ill and relive the pain they experienced when he was dying. Isn't it so? Isn't it not good? Yes, it is bad. Why are you thinking about his pain? We should think about the most auspicious and best things. That is how we connect with the best, and can even help our loved ones. If you abide in the notion of his misery all day, you are harming him. There is good stuff you are not thinking about. Why are you thinking about these? He continued, I try not to think about it, but as soon as I get to a certain place, the scene reappears. For example, when I pass a hospital, I'll revisit the image of my loved one lying in bed in agony. Seeing that scene again brings out some bad things. He said, I followed the instructions of my great master, visualizing my loved ones entering a Buddha's pure land. Then I remembered that you taught me that the Diamond Sutra has 2 oral pith instructions. Or, as Guru Rinpoche instructed, one should not focus on the outside or the inside, but rather on the center, which means balance. May I request the Great Master for your instructions? Is this what we call the present moment? Yes, of course it is called the present moment. This is called the present moment, which means that all afflictions are body. I have already said that these scenes suddenly appear, which are afflictions. For you, they are afflictions. So, you should know that they are something that helps you develop your awareness. They are reminding you to develop the awareness. In other words, if you do not want your loved ones to suffer so much, you should immediately think about how happy they will be in a Buddha's pure land. Do they possess the 8 auspicious merits? If not, immediately give them and connect with them. Do you understand what I am saying? That is, this very thing I am teaching him now has been taught long time ago. I have been teaching the 8 auspicious signs for 20 years. If he does not apply them, there is nothing I can do. You must help your loved ones connect, right? Are you not helping them connect with the 8 auspicious signs? Do it right at this moment. If you do this immediately, your loved ones' illnesses will instantly be transformed into auspiciousness. This is helping them right now, transforming them into body. This is the awareness. The awareness, I'm at the hospital, again. Oh. I remember my mother was admitted to this hospital. Oh. Is this the hospital where my mother was suffering terribly? My mother is reminding me to practice the 8 auspicious signs. That's right. If I don't have this kind of awareness, I need to develop this awareness immediately and practice right away. Even before I finish walking this path, and before I even enter this hospital, I have already visualized the 8 kinds of auspiciousness, connecting to my mother. Wow! My mother is so happy now. The pain she felt back then is gone, completely gone. Only the auspicious magnetic field remains. This is how it is supposed to be done, understand? I taught you how to visualize that day, and you must follow everything I taught you. I will teach you how to connect with your mother later. But for now, I have explained the theory first. I will teach you how to visualize practically in the future. But at the very least, you must dedicate the merit. You must dedicate the merit to your mother. Why do you always think about those bad things? Those bad things may come out automatically from the virtuous, the evil karmic portfolio. It has nothing to do with you. However, I say, afflictions are body. Their emergence is to help you develop the awareness, to help your mother. The moment they emerge, you immediately help your mother, and that is good. So, you should be grateful for its emergence. Why? If not, you would not remember to practice the Dharma to help your mother, right? You do not know how to dedicate merits to your mother. But when they pop out, you know you need to help. That is a good thing. Afflictions being body is a good thing. So, you must remember this. He then said, I would also like to ask, apart from disciple, are the thoughts of my other living relatives also reinforcing my thoughts? Yes, if your mother has gone to a good place, her bad karma will still emerge, and some unpleasant things may happen. Even if she has reached a Buddha's pure land, she may still be trapped within the lotus, unable to see the Buddha and worried, wondering when the lotus will finally open. Then, a wave of worry suddenly arises. You miss your mother dearly, and this affects you, reminding you that she is unhappy. Mother is unhappy. This is an affliction. The emergence of afflictions means the emergence of body, the emergence of the awareness, which reminds me to quickly connect with the 8 auspicious signs and help my mother make the lotus open quickly. Which of the 8 auspicious signs can help open the lotus? Then visualize this one more, understand? That's it. That is how you should think. That is how you should practice the Dharma. He said, according to the great master's teachings, is this also a form of karmic retribution? Since it is cause and effect, it can also create good conditions. It is both affliction and body. He then asked, how can I change this kind of mind? This has already been taught. He said, thank you, great master, for the teachings. They have already been taught. That is the situation. This is my answer to this disciple's questions about how to apply the 8 auspicious signs. Why would he feel guilty in this situation? In fact, this is called at the present moment. I have already answered that question. You must act immediately, right now. He asked if it reinforced his thoughts. I have already answered that. Is this a form of karmic retribution? I have already answered that. How can I change my mind? I have also answered that. All questions have been answered. Okay, I will teach you some more remedies. There are 3 levels of accumulating good karma. The middle level, which I have explained in detail earlier, is especially important for you. This is necessary for your own Dharma practice. You must cultivate these 8 auspicious merits. Otherwise, how can you find the 8 auspicious magnetic fields associated with the Buddha to embrace you to enter the Dharma realm? And allows you to enter without obstacles, right? You can also use it to help your loved ones. It is the same method. You feel guilty now. Why do you feel this guilt? It is because you did not serve your mother or your loved ones well when they were alive. Your mother was very ill. Maybe she asked you to do this or that, or there were things you did not do. Then, it is easy to feel guilty, thinking that what is done is gone and cannot be turned back. What can you do? You will blame yourself all day long. You must understand that if we constantly blame ourselves during Dharma practice, that is called negative energy. This is absolutely not helpful to our Dharma practice. And it is of little use to our awareness unless we use it to remind ourselves, to correct our behavior, and help our loved ones. So, what remedies are there now? Use your greatest ability right now. What is your greatest ability? It is your Dharma practice. What is your greatest ability? It is the visualization. What has your master taught you? The 8 auspicious signs. I also taught you many other things. I will slowly tell you what I will teach them later. I have taught this disciple many things, but does he know how to apply them? I do not know. Do your utmost to fulfill your responsibilities, and strive to ensure the best possible outcomes for your deceased loved ones. You are currently practicing the Dharma, and you are actually quite sufficient. Not everyone knows how to visualize. Those who practice the exoteric Buddhism do not, but you do. Few people understand these visualizations these days, but what your gurus teaches you is the most correct, without abiding in the notions or deviations. They also teach you to cultivate your mind, guaranteeing you will not run into any setbacks. None of the methods you are practicing will lead you to the 3 lower realms. No, they will not. Like a snake on a bamboo, you're bound to be upward, not downward. I have already taught you, and if you do not use it, you are wasting it. Do you understand? Therefore, this practice of visualizing the 8 auspicious signs not only accumulates merits connecting oneself with the Buddhas, but can also be performed for the benefit of loved ones. This practice accumulates transcendental merits for deceased loved ones and is a very good form of compensation. If this disciple had diligently practiced this visualization from the very beginning of his Buddhist learning with me, his merits accumulated by now would have been very abundant and auspicious. Even if he does not use them to assist his loved ones in visualization, he could have dedicated some of the auspicious merits to them through the practice of dedication. This can help your loved ones develop a deep connection with the Buddha. These 8 auspicious signs are all connected to the Buddha, so they will benefit your loved ones. The question is, do you value the teachings given by your guru? After receiving them, do you practice them? Do you understand the importance of these teachings? Are you aiming too high? Do you focus only on practicing the deity methods? Emptiness? Or other things but not this? Do you only practice the teachings on emptiness, and not the teachings on accumulating merits? This is not allowed. Do not forget that you are currently in the 3 realms, where the law of cause and effect operates. Therefore, you must have a cultivation method to deal with the law of cause and effect. You must understand this. You must understand how to operate it and how to apply it. The cultivation methods between the 3 realms and the Dharma realm must be balanced. Some dharmas are designed to help you enter the Dharma realm. You yourself are already in the 3 realms, dealing with the countless worries of daily life. How can you balance these 2 things? This is what you need to understand. Guilt arises because your awareness is not high enough. Consequently, regret later leads to greed, hatred, and ignorance, resulting in flawed behavior. What flaws are these? Perhaps you were not serving your mother well. You were not treating her well enough. You were calling her troublesome, and you were disgusted with her. Could this be the case? After she died, you feel a surge of regret. How can you remedy this? Give your mother all the best things you can. Then, even that small feeling of guilt will surely transform into auspiciousness. Do you understand? Afflictions will transform into the awareness. Because, yes, guilt comes from not serving her well enough, from lacking something. But now that you are giving her the best, it will definitely balance things out. Regarding the visualizations as to how to help loved ones connect with the 8 auspicious signs, I will teach during in-person teachings internally at the Dudgeon Buddhist Association, International. When I teach the 8 auspicious signs, I will teach the more advanced level. Now let's talk about the worldly aspect. Did I not mention that we must establish a connection with the highest aid in the world earlier? What is this? It is the visualization of the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch. This is also divided into 2 levels. First, the merit accumulated from the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch is stored in a piggy bank. But can it be used? This depends on your own order of karmic conditions. However, I have not taught you the second method yet. How do you draw it out and apply it to the specific obstacle? I have not taught you this yet. The first type of accumulation is called no escape. I must face it and accumulate these merits. However, I must also not abide in notions. How can I not abide in notions? In other words, both the transcendental and the worldly must be handled according to the law of cause and effect. This is what is called wise handling. Therefore, to achieve a balance between the worldly and the transcendental, we must use the second method, the method of not abiding in notions. I have not taught you this yet. You must complete the whole set of mind cultivation and Dharma practice. That means you have to wait until I have finished teaching the Compassion series and you are familiar with its application. Only then will I teach you. That way, you will not run into any setbacks. Okay. This visualization of the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch from the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio helps you bring out some good karma when needed. This is also called order of karmic conditions, but it is a condition you create yourself, not one established automatically. Because it appears according to your order of karmic conditions, not your needs, we need to create a condition and bring it out. Let's talk about what the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch are. Volume 14 of the Maharatnakuta Sutra states, when a wheel-turning sage king is born into a noble family, 7 treasures will appear. What does 7 mean? 1 is called the purple gold wheel, with 1,000 spokes. 1,000 spokes refer to the axles, which we call spokes. 1,000 spokes refer to the inside of the wheel. You can look at bicycles. They have many axles inside the wheels, which we call spokes. First, the wheel treasure is a flying wheel that can fly at will. It was a weapon in ancient times that could conquer and destroy enemies. It symbolizes the power and virtue of the king. Like a wheel, it is easy to control and fly. Wherever it goes, people will submit to it. Offering this treasure has 2 benefits. In Dharma practice, offering the wheel treasure to the Buddha or Guru can bring success and prestige in spreading the Dharma and Dharma practice, easily gaining the trust of believers. Offering the wheel treasure on the Buddhist altar can also bring the kingly majesty. You may say, oh, we're practicing the Dharma now, and we need to reduce greed, hatred, and ignorance. Why are you teaching me about kingly majesty? Let me explain it. This symbolizes the ancient kingly majesty. But the king we are talking about is the kingly majesty of Buddhist teachings that overcomes afflictions. Do you understand? Never focus on the worldly side. While we are talking about transcendental pursuits, we must also maintain a balance with the worldly side. Without this kind of prestige and authority, our worldly endeavors will often be ignored. Even if we have excellent plans, no one will take notice, and therefore we will not be able to implement them. We need a certain kind of mighty virtue to be able to carry it out. If I want to have this kind of mighty virtue in my worldly endeavors, and also have the mighty virtue to subdue my afflictions in my transcendental Dharma practice, then I must visualize this wheel treasure. This wheel treasure has its source. The Maharatnakara Sutra explains that there are 7 kinds of treasure. These are what the sutra says, so you should follow this in your visualization. This will help you to be free from obstacles. If you possess this treasure, just imagine, wouldn't you be able to satisfy your need for freedom from pain, threats, or illness? Would you not? Your social needs would certainly be met, right? With such prestige, you will surely be respected. Self-actualization can also be easily achieved. Your plans will definitely succeed, right? But it requires 2 levels of visualization. One is called no escape, and the other is called not abiding in notions. The second treasure, according to the Maharatnakuta Sutra, is the white elephant, with 6 tusks, known as the elephant treasure. As you know, elephants are very strong and can carry heavy loads. In ancient times, our large-scale logistics and transportation vehicles relied on them. They are also brave, making them indispensable in wars. Therefore, it symbolizes the power, talent and responsibility of a king. Like an elephant, it has enough ability to develop large-scale projects, and has enough environmental factors and personnel to cooperate with your development. Offering this treasure has 2 benefits. In Dharma practice, offering the elephant treasure to the Buddha and the Guru can gain various talents in spreading the Dharma and Dharma practice. Offering the elephant treasure on the Buddhist altar can gain the power, talent, and responsibility of a king. This means that you are able to implement large-scale, worldly projects, and are more than capable of carrying them out. I am talking about both worldly and transcendental goals. You must possess both. Never offer this treasure solely for worldly desires. Well, if you can use this treasure and accumulate merits, you can certainly be free from suffering. You can be successful in social interactions. You will be respected, achieve self-realization, and so on. Everything can be satisfied. However, it must be accompanied by visualizations. Otherwise, it will only be 10 points. If you only score 10 points and do not understand the second level of visualization, you will be caught between a rock and a hard place, and you will find that the merits you have accumulated are not effective. This is because the merits you have accumulated are not accurate and appropriate enough. Similarly, you must not escape and not abide in notions. The third one is called the horse treasure. The Maharatnakuta Sutra describes this divine horse as blue with a black head. It is incredibly fast, majestic, and powerful, and its entire body is blue. In ancient times, our means of transportation relied on horses, much like our modern Porsche, representing kingly majesty and efficiency. It speaks of efficiency. In Dharma practice, offering the horse treasure to Buddha and the Guru can gain a lot of assistance and abilities in spreading the Dharma and practicing the Dharma, and make your Dharma practice faster. If you offer the horse treasure on the Buddhist altar, you can pray for kingly majesty and efficiency. Then, when you work in worldly matters, you will accomplish many things more easily, completing them quickly without delays. Everything will be easily successful. Of course, with this treasure, you can cope with suffering, right? You can also heal illnesses faster than others. You can fulfill the need for social interactions, the need for respect, and the need for self-actualization. But again, it must be accompanied by visualizations, and at 2 levels, no escape, and not abiding in notions. The fourth treasure is the moon-transformed pearl, which has 8 corners. This is called the jewel treasure, also known as the wish-fulfilling jewel. This pearl was formed from a Buddha relic placed in the ocean, where it was incubated for a long time. It glows, and it is indeed a Buddha relic. It is blue and octagonal. It symbolizes the wealth and glory of a king. You can obtain sufficient financial resources to accomplish your goals. In Dharma practice, offering the jewel treasure to the Buddha or guru can provide numerous resources for the spread of the Dharma and Dharma practice. Offering the jewel treasure on the Buddhist altar can also bring the wealth and glory of a king. This means you will have sufficient resources to develop your worldly endeavors. If you possess this treasure, it will naturally be easy to help yourself avoid pain, threats, and so on. It can also satisfy your social needs, your need for respect, your physiological needs, and your need for self-actualization. You will definitely satisfy all 5 needs, because you have sufficient financial resources. However, these needs can only be fulfilled through visualizations. One is no escape, and the other is not abiding in notions. The 5th one is called the woman treasure. What is this woman treasure? If a man wishes to have the woman treasure, it means that he will marry a good wife. If a woman offers this treasure, it means she will marry a good husband. You naturally hope that your partner possesses excellent moral characters, calm and graceful in speech and behavior, and possesses a subtle fragrance in both speech and body, free from foul odors. This symbolizes the merit and virtue of a king's companion. In Dharma practice, offering the woman treasure to the Buddha and Guru can secure a high-quality companion to assist in the propagation of the Dharma and Dharma practice. This is extremely important. I have seen countless disciples. Why do they regress in their Dharma practice in the end? Because, as you know, we are very strict. We have to abide by this rule and that rule, and then we have to practice the Dharma diligently, do homework, and so on. As a result, their partners will feel that they are not cared for, and that their partners are only thinking about the Buddhist center. This will lead to frequent quarrels, which will hinder their Dharma practice. But if, like some people do out there, you come for an empowerment and then leave, saying goodbye, and then you are given a ritual and then go home to practice on your own, you will not be able to succeed in Dharma practice. Why? You must have a guru who monitors you, watches whether your behavior violates the precepts, constantly reminds you, and urges you to practice. In fact, only in this way can you achieve success in Dharma practice. Think about it. You were supposed to become a monk to achieve this, but now you do not need to become a monk. You can practice the Dharma at home, allowing you to take care of both. But this can lead to jealousy and complaints that you spend too much time in a Buddhist center. As a result, you fail to achieve anything in Dharma practice. Therefore, you need to have a good partner who understands things and even practices the Dharma with you. This way, you will be able to thrive in both spreading the Dharma and Dharma practice. It is even better if she can help you spread the Dharma and teach the Dharma for you, saving you a lot of efforts. Therefore, this is very important. Otherwise, you will not be able to move forward. If you offer the woman treasure on the Buddhist altar, you can obtain the blessings of a king's companion. In other words, you will have a high-quality companion. For example, when you partner with someone, having a quality partner as your companion will make your business easier to achieve and your life more fulfilling. Because, as you know, Dharma practitioners are very afraid of loneliness. If you have a good partner who will not hinder your Dharma practice, congratulations. You will not be alone, and there will be people encouraging you and supporting you, which will help you cultivate faster. This is the best. However, I have seen many people who do not have this kind of blessings. Okay. Let's see. If we had this treasure, facing pain would be much easier, right? Socially, physiologically, all needs would be met. However, this also requires visualizations, which are divided into 2 levels, no escape, and not abiding in notions. The 6th is called the Great Minister who owns the treasure, which means the master owning the treasure. In other sutras and treatises, it is also called the treasure of the Great Minister owns, the treasure of the minister, or the householder treasure. It means that buried treasures are divided into those owned and unowned. Owned means protected and guarded. If you obtain those unowned, you can use them. This treasure symbolizes the blessings and virtues of the king's wise ministers, meaning that you will have the support of high-quality wise ministers. As you know, if we are running a company, we need a leader, a CEO who can help you with your work. This is the best. He is the one who sees you as his boss, loyally obeys you, and plans everything for you. In Dharma practice, offering the householder treasure to the Buddha and the Guru can help you gain high-quality companions in the propagation of the Dharma and Dharma practice. These companions will assist you in spreading the Dharma, plan all your propagation plans, and enable you to successfully spread the Dharma and save many sentient beings. The propagation of the Dharma also requires such powerful and virtuous ministers. If you offer the householder treasure on the Buddhist altar, you can pray for the merits and blessings of a wise minister of the king in your worldly affairs. This means that someone will support you and help you run your company, allowing you to complete all your plans without having to work so hard. If you possess this treasure, you can avoid pain, threats, and many other things, and you can easily solve them. You will have your needs for social interactions and respect, and needs for self-actualization. However, it must be combined with visualizations, both levels of visualization. No escape, and not abiding in notions, must be present. The seventh type is called the Army General Treasure, which can control the troops of the 4 regions. That is, he can help command all the troops in the east, south, west, and north. The Army General Treasure is also called the Great General Treasure. This treasure symbolizes the blessings and virtues of a king's mighty general. It means you will have the support of a wise and brave general, who is both resourceful and strategic. He will help you to charge into battle, and he will regard you as his master, and will not betray you. He is very loyal. In Dharma practice, offering the Army General Treasure to the Buddha and the Guru can provide valuable support in spreading the Dharma and Dharma practice, helping you overcome difficulties. Any obstacles or attacks from others can be resolved. If you offer the Army General Treasure on the Buddhist altar, you can pray for the blessings of a powerful king in worldly matters. This means someone will charge into battle on your behalf, slashing through thorns and brambles, and removing all obstacles. This is the assistance of high-quality individuals, capable of resisting and resolving all attacks. You can accomplish all your plans with a fierce offensive. If you possess this treasure, it can certainly help you escape pain, threats, illness, and so on. You fulfill your social needs, your need for respect, and your need for self-actualization. You can accomplish many things, but this requires visualization, as well as no escape, and not abiding in notions. You must possess these 7 treasures. If you lack them in worldly matters, you will be stretched thin, and have no time for Dharma practice. You will be preoccupied with managing your company, and with your business affairs alone, you will not have time for Dharma practice. When you get home from work, you will be exhausted and need to rest. How can you find time to practice the Dharma? You will not succeed in your Dharma practice. You must have these treasures to assist you in satisfying the 5 needs of life within the worldly dharmas. You must possess both the transcendental, 8 auspicious signs, and the worldly 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch. You must have both, and you must strike a balance between the transcendental and the worldly. In other words, you must have a foundation of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice, before you can practice and achieve rapid success in this evil world of the 5 turbidities. If you consider these things to be attachments out of avoidance, saying, I don't want these things. Jewelry, horse treasures. My body is just a stinking bag of skin. I don't want anything. I'm going to the mountains to cultivate now. I don't want anything. I'll throw everything away. Can you go to the mountains to cultivate? You would freeze to death in the mountains in no time. You would cause a great trouble to others to go into the mountains to find your body and bury it. Or perhaps they would need to mobilize a large army, even a helicopter, to rescue you. Why bother with all that? You simply cannot bear it. If you go to the cave, will there be a guru to teach you? If you practice the Dharma on your own and encounter something you do not understand, will there be a guru to teach you? Have you cultivated to the point where you can contact the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come down and teach you? You are nothing, so why would you go to the mountains? You are not in the mountains now. You are in this evil world of the 5 turbidities. You need to rely on this to achieve balance. How can you achieve balance? Only the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch and the 8 auspicious signs can achieve balance. If you cannot achieve balance, you cannot succeed in your Dharma practice. If you cannot succeed in your Dharma practice, you will be constrained by powerful karma. And you will continue to reincarnate for 3 great asamkhya kalpa before awakening. You will be trapped. Where can you practice the Dharma? How can you be awakened? It will be quite difficult. It may take a great stimulus to awaken you so that you finally are willing to face all these troubles. In fact, if you have the awareness and know how to follow our practice methods, you will recognize that these troubles are body. They can help your Dharma practice. If you do not know, you will only be trapped in suffering. This is the difference between having someone to teach and not having someone to teach. Therefore, if you are still in the 5 turbidities, you need the help of the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch. You also need a guru to teach you. Isn't this the essence of afflictions being body? Without the wheel treasure, how can you understand what afflictions are body? You know it but do not understand it, or you understand it but do not know how to use it, right? You need to use it, but do not know that the wheel-turning monarch's 7 treasures can help you. So, these are 2 of the visualizations that we at the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, must practice upon entering the association. They are taught right from the beginning. If you wish to attain Buddhahood in this very life, you must possess the corresponding wisdom. You must correspond to all 8 auspicious signs. You must correspond to all 7 treasures to help you resolve worldly difficulties. Only then can you be successful in your Dharma practice. Without these, what can help you cut through the thorns and brambles? Who will protect you when you enter the Dharma realm? Everything depends on these. Do you think that just cultivating the deity is enough? As we discussed in the previous session, even if you have cultivated to become an arhat, how good can it be? You will be starving to death if you have nothing to eat. Therefore, we need both primary and ancillary forces. This is what you need to do right from the start. What is the core of the law of cause and effect? It is correspondence. It is to correspond. If you want to cultivate to the Dharma realm and attain Buddhahood, you must have a corresponding practice method and the corresponding support. If you do not have auxiliary forces, and only practice the corresponding main method without any supporting practices, you will be struggling. You may not even achieve your goal. So, be careful. Let's see what is called wisdom. Wisdom means the 6 paramitas, the merits of directly connecting with Buddhas, and a connection with the highest auxiliary forces in the world. All 3 must be present, and all 3 must be balanced. This is called wisdom. If one of the 3 is missing, or if all 3 are unbalanced, this is called lack of wisdom. If one lacks everything and practices haphazardly, such as practicing the 6 paramitas causally, this is called lack of wisdom. Therefore, one must practice with wisdom and no escape. This is called correspondence. Understanding correspondence is called wisdom. Therefore, our initial practice requires the practice of balanced visualization of good deeds. So, the 6 paramitas of the exoteric teachings lack visualizations, and therefore are unbalanced. Why do we need you to do this? Because the law of cause and effect requires that we deal with it accordingly. Escaping it will only lead to frustration, or it will simply be impossible to avoid it, resulting in unbearable pain and excruciating suffering. Therefore, you must understand how to cultivate the 8 auspicious signs and the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch. You also need to understand no escape, and not abiding in notions. I will teach my disciples about not abiding in notions in the future. Both transcendental dharmas and worldly dharmas need to be handled accordingly based on the law of cause and effect. This is called wise handling. This is called balance, a balanced Dharma practice method. Anything less than this is called imbalance. Okay, let's conclude today. The conclusion is that we should not stray into an unbalanced Dharma practice. When you first start practicing the Dharma, and if you only focus on the 8 auspicious signs and the 7 treasures of the wheel-turning monarch, but do not use the method of cultivating the mind in Dharma practice to balance them, and you also do not know how to apply them and use them to treat the symptoms, this is called imbalance. You need to achieve what I taught previously to be balanced and have the awareness. What is the awareness? It is to be aware of all actions of body, speech, and mind. Do they align with the Buddhist definitions of precepts, correct views, right knowledge, and balance within the middle path? You need to be aware of the transformation of your mind. Through the 5 steps of the mind cultivating procedure, you can transform the mind into the 5 wisdoms. You also need to be aware of the enhancement the 5 wisdoms, leading them into the state of oneness of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. You must be aware of these 3 things. If you have the awareness and are aware of these 3 things, you can enhance your awareness. In this way, you are cultivating and will successfully cultivate the awareness. This can also help you with the practice of afflictions being body. The next session will teach more esoteric Buddhist practice methods, particularly those taught at the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. Today, we have covered the most essential aspects of the initial introductory level of the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio you need most. Firstly, you must address your good karma and strengthen your energy. If you do not have energy, how can you deal with the bad karma? If you do not have energy, how can you learn the Dharma? If you do not have energy, how can you continue to cultivate? You cannot do anything. When you first start practicing the Dharma, you only repent and do not do any good deeds. Then, how many good deeds do you have to offset your bad karma? How many repentances do you need to do to offset your bad karma? I think you may not be able to continue practicing the Dharma. So be careful. The Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's Primary Karmas states that cultivating the 10 beliefs requires 1 to 3 asamkhya kalpa before one can reach the initial level. That is, the Bodhisattva with initial resolute vows. How long is 1 kalpa? It is 4.32 billion years. The Sutra for Humane Kings states 10,000 kalpa means 10,000 kalpa of walking the right path, advancing and retreating uncertainly, like a feather floating unsteadily. In other words, why does it take 10,000 kalpa for us to practice the Dharma? 10,000 kalpa. It takes 10,000 kalpa to cultivate the 10 beliefs, because one's advance and retreat will be uncertain. Some of my disciples are also uncertain about advance or retreat, so they cannot succeed in their Dharma practice. I find it a pity. Treatise on the Awakening of Faith states that one will need 10,000 kalpa to cultivate the 10 beliefs before he can achieve success. However, our esoteric Buddhism claims to be able to attain Buddhahood in the present lifetime through the current body. So, how can it be done? What is the fastest way to cultivate the 10 beliefs? This requires applying the mind cultivating procedure, which I am teaching you, to cultivate the 5 wisdoms and work with the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions. The mind cultivating procedure can develop these 5 kinds of wisdom. Combined with the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions, not abiding in any notions, and not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, this is how you can achieve success in Dharma practice. How quickly will you achieve success? That depends on how well you apply it. Okay. What is the goal of our mind cultivating procedure? It is to integrate the 10 beliefs and the awareness, and train the 5 wisdoms to be developed. The 10 beliefs are 10 kinds of awareness. We cultivate the 10 beliefs from enhancing the awareness, to the point of not abiding in any notions. We combine, not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, and the 10 beliefs to thoroughly overcome all difficulties and shortcomings in our mind and daily life. By not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, we achieve and complete the perfect enlightenment. What does not abiding in any notion mean? Not abiding in any notion does not mean accepting but doing nothing. Rather, it means acting without attachment and working with the 10 beliefs. Not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness means accepting proactively. This means facing things proactively, combining the agile awareness with the 10 beliefs to develop wisdom and reflect on all actions. What is the mind cultivating procedure? It is accepting, which can help you develop the wisdom of equality. Questioning, analyzing, and seeking the root can help you develop the discriminating wisdom, while treating can develop the accomplishing wisdom. If you can successfully develop these three kinds of wisdom and successfully solve problems and correct shortcomings, and the mind, that is, your behavioral formulas, can be corrected, and you do not abide in notions, then you can enter the all-mirror wisdom. If you lead the all-mirror wisdom into emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, the state of oneness, without abiding in notions, you can enter the Dharmadhatu wisdom. Combined with compassion and bodhicitta, you can 100% achieve bodhicitta's perfect enlightenment, i.e., becoming a Buddha. That is all for today. You can refer to the Compassion series from the 20th to this episode, available from our Dudjom Buddhist Association, International's TV channel on YouTube, teaching the 5 steps of the mind cultivating procedure.